My father smiled as he signed the agreement. The room erupted into applause. Crystal glasses clinked. Champagne flowed. My mother wiped tears from her eyes and called it the happiest day of her life. My 19-year-old sister looked like she was attending her own funeral. And nobody noticed except me. Nobody noticed how tightly she was gripping the edge of her chair. Nobody noticed her trembling hands. Nobody noticed the fear hidden behind her first smile. They thought I would stay silent. After all, I was the disappointing daughter, the difficult daughter, the daughter who always asked questions, the daughter who refused to obey. What they didn't know was that 3 weeks earlier, I had discovered something buried deep inside my father's private records, something that explained exactly why they were so desperate to marry my sister off. And when I finally exposed it, the family name they were trying so hard to protect became the very thing that destroyed them. If you've ever been the family scapegoat, this story is for you. My name is Olivia Carter. I'm 31 years old, and this happened in Charleston, South Carolina. To understand how my parents almost sold my sister's future, you need to understand one thing about the Carter family. Image was everything. Not happiness. Not honesty. Not love. Image. My father, William Carter, built one of the largest law firms in the state. My mother, Diane Carter, sat on charity boards and social committees. Every magazine article called them Charleston royalty. People admired them, envied them, wanted to be them. Only a handful of people knew the truth. Behind closed doors, our family was a carefully managed performance, and everyone had a role. My older brother Ethan was the heir, the future of the Carter legacy, the golden child. My younger sister Emma was the princess, beautiful, sweet, perfect for photographs. And me, I was the problem. I was the daughter who became a journalist instead of joining the family business. The daughter who asked uncomfortable questions. The daughter who refused to smile for pictures after learning what happened behind the scenes. My relationship with my parents had been strained for years, but everything changed one rainy Thursday night. Emma called me crying. She almost never cried. Not even when she broke her arm at 12. Not when her first boyfriend cheated on her. Not when our grandmother died. Yet that night she could barely speak. "Liv," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "I think Mom and Dad are trying to marry me off." I sat upright. "What? They keep inviting this man over." "What man?" She hesitated. Then she said his name, Gregory Sinclair. I knew exactly who he was. Everyone in Charleston knew who he was. 52 years old. Real estate developer. Worth hundreds of millions. Twice divorced, and 33 years older than my sister. My stomach dropped. "Emma, tell me exactly what's happening." Silence. Then she whispered something that made my blood run cold. "They already announced our engagement." I nearly dropped my phone. "What do you mean announced?" "I mean announced." Her voice broke. "They sent invitations." I froze. Invitations? To an engagement? Without asking her? "Emma, I never said yes." The room suddenly felt smaller, darker, more dangerous, because my parents weren't the type of people who made mistakes. Everything they did was deliberate. Everything had a purpose, and if they were pushing their 19-year-old daughter toward a 52-year-old millionaire, there was a reason they weren't telling anyone. The next morning, I drove straight to the family estate. The mansion sat behind iron gates overlooking the harbor. It looked like something from a movie. Perfect lawns, perfect flowers, perfect lies. When I walked inside, preparations were already underway. Workers were setting up tables. Floral designers moved through the foyer. Caterers unloaded supplies. It looked like a wedding. Not an engagement party. A wedding. My mother spotted me immediately. Her smile vanished. "Olivia." "Diane." I hadn't called her mom in years. Her jaw tightened. "What are you doing here?" "I came to talk about Emma." The temperature in the room changed instantly. "There's nothing to discuss." Really? I looked around. You announced her engagement without asking her. My mother lowered her voice. Careful. That single word carried a warning. Then my father appeared. William Carter, 6'3". Perfect suit. Perfect smile. Perfect reputation. Olivia. His voice was calm, dangerously calm. What seems to be the problem? I looked him directly in the eye. Did Emma agree to this marriage? For the first time, neither parent answered, and that silence told me everything. Then my father finally spoke. This arrangement benefits everyone. Arrangement. Not relationship. Not engagement. Arrangement. Every alarm bell in my head started ringing. Emma wasn't getting married. She was being traded. The question was, for what? And the answer would be far worse than anything I imagined. I didn't leave the mansion immediately. Instead, I did something my parents hated. I stayed quiet, because over the years, I'd learned something important about powerful people. When they think they've won, they stop being careful. And for the next 2 hours, I watched my mother coordinate event planners. I watched my father take phone calls in private corners. I watched Gregory Sinclair walk through the house as if he already owned it. But the strangest thing wasn't Gregory. It was Emma. She wasn't acting like a bride-to-be. She wasn't excited. She wasn't nervous. She looked trapped every time Gregory touched her shoulder. She flinched every time he put his hand on her back. She stiffened. And every time my parents looked at her, they looked relieved as if they were counting down the days until a problem disappeared. That thought stayed with me all afternoon, because Emma wasn't the problem. She was the solution. The question was, what problem was she solving? That night I called my friend Sarah. Sarah wasn't just a friend. She was a forensic accountant, the kind of woman who could uncover secrets buried beneath 10 layers of lies. Tell me everything, she said. I explained the situation. The engagement. Gregory Sinclair. My parents' strange behavior. The word arrangement. When I finished speaking, Sarah was silent. Then she asked one question. How much do you know about your father's finances? I laughed. Nothing. That's a problem. Why? Because wealthy families don't make deals like this unless they're desperate. Desperate. The word stuck in my mind. My father wasn't desperate. William Carter controlled judges, politicians, and CEOs. People feared him, respected him, needed him. But what if Sarah was right? What if the powerful Carter family wasn't as powerful as everyone believed? The next morning I started digging. At first, everything looked normal. The law firm was thriving. The family foundation was thriving. The real estate investments appeared healthy. Nothing looked unusual. Then I found something strange. A property sale. $5 million. Sold nearly 18 months earlier. The buyer? Gregory Sinclair. The seller? A company connected to my father. That alone wasn't suspicious. Until I saw the sale price. The property was worth at least $15 million. Maybe 20. Yet my father sold it for 5. I stared at the screen. Nobody gives away $15 million. Not accidentally, especially not William Carter. Something wasn't right. I sent everything to Sarah. 2 hours later my phone rang. Olivia. Her voice sounded different. Serious. What did you find? You need to sit down. My stomach tightened. What is it? The property wasn't a gift. What do you mean? It was collateral. I felt my pulse quicken. For what? Sarah hesitated. Then she answered. Debt. The room spun. Debt. My father hated debt. He lectured everyone about debt. He treated debt like a disease. Yet somehow Gregory Sinclair held property connected to millions in hidden obligations. And if that wasn't shocking enough, Sarah wasn't finished. The debt wasn't personal. What was it? The law firm. I nearly dropped my phone. No, I'm serious. The Carter Law Group was carrying enormous undisclosed liabilities. How enormous. Another pause. Then she said a number that made my blood run cold. Approximately $87 million. I couldn't breathe. 87 million. That wasn't financial stress. That was financial annihilation, and suddenly everything started making sense. The rushed engagement, the secrecy, the desperation. The way Gregory acted like he already owned everything. My parents weren't celebrating, they were negotiating. And Emma was the payment. But the story still didn't add up, because nobody marries off their daughter just to settle debt. Not even my parents. There had to be something worse. Something they were terrified of exposing. 3 days later, I got my answer. Completely by accident. I was reviewing court records connected to one of my father's former clients when I noticed a familiar name. William Carter. At first I thought it was routine paperwork. Then I noticed the filing had been sealed. Sealed records always attract attention, especially when powerful people are involved. I spent the next 24 hours chasing leads. Most doors stayed closed. Most people refused to talk, until one retired clerk agreed to meet me. We met in a small diner outside Charleston. She arrived carrying a folder, a very old folder. The moment she placed it on the table, I knew something was wrong. "What is this?" I asked. She looked around carefully, then leaned forward. "Something that disappeared 15 years ago." I opened the folder. Inside were witness statements, financial records, private correspondence, and one name appeared again and again: Gregory Sinclair. My hands started shaking. What am I looking at? The woman swallowed hard. Then she whispered the words that changed everything. "Your father didn't just owe Gregory money." I looked up. "What do you mean?" She stared directly into my eyes. "Gregory helped cover up a scandal." My heart pounded. What scandal? The moment I left the diner, I knew I was being watched. 81st. I thought I was imagining it. Maybe it was paranoia. Maybe it was the stress. Maybe it was the fact that I had just learned my parents were connected to a 15-year-old death that had somehow vanished from public records. But when the same black SUV appeared behind me for the third time that week, I stopped doubting myself. Someone knew what I was doing, and someone wanted me to stop. The next morning, I woke up to 32 missed calls. Every single one was from family. My aunt, my uncle, my cousins, even relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Confused, I opened social media. My stomach dropped. My father had moved first. A photo had been posted from the engagement celebration. Gregory stood beside Emma. My parents stood proudly behind them. The caption read, "Celebrating love, family, and the future." Thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. Then I noticed another post. This one was from my mother. Some people are so consumed by jealousy that they can't stand seeing others happy. Attached was a photo of me, taken without my knowledge. The comments were brutal. "Attention seeker. Bitter daughter. Family destroyer. Jealous sister." I stared at my phone. They weren't just fighting me. They were destroying my credibility before I could expose them. And it was working. Within hours, relatives started calling. "Olivia, you're embarrassing the family. You've always hated your father. Emma is an adult. You need to let this go." Nobody asked why a 19-year-old girl was engaged to a 52-year-old man. Nobody questioned it, because my parents controlled the narrative. They always had, and for the first time in years, I felt completely alone, until Emma called. She was crying. Harder than I'd ever heard before. "Liv. What happened?" Silence. Then, "He moved into the house." I froze. "Who?" "You know who?" "Gregory." My hands tightened around the phone. "What do you mean he moved in?" "Dad said it would help us bond before the wedding." Wedding. Not engagement anymore. Wedding. The date had already been set, without her permission, without her agreement, without her choice. My chest tightened. When is it? Another silence. Then she whispered, 6 weeks. 6 weeks. My parents weren't arranging a marriage, they were rushing one. And desperate people rush for one reason. Because they're running out of time. That evening, I met Sarah again. I told her everything. The public attacks, the wedding date, the black SUV, the pressure on Emma. Sarah listened quietly, then she slid a folder across the table. What is this? Something you're not going to like. I opened it. Inside were financial records, dozens of them. Every page made my stomach sink further. Transfers, loans, hidden accounts, shell companies, and one name appeared everywhere. Gregory Sinclair. The deeper I looked, the worse it became. For nearly 15 years, Gregory had quietly financed failing Carter businesses. Every time my father made a bad investment, Gregory stepped in. Every time the law firm lost money, Gregory covered the gap. Every time a deal collapsed, Gregory saved them. The Carter empire wasn't built by my father. It was being propped up by Gregory. And now Gregory wanted repayment, but not in money. In control. My father's entire fortune was tied to Gregory. The mansion, the firm, the investments, everything. If Gregory pulled away, the Carter family would collapse overnight. Suddenly the marriage made horrifying sense. Emma wasn't a daughter, she was a contract. A permanent connection between two families, a guarantee Gregory would keep protecting them. I felt sick, but then Sarah showed me the final page and everything changed. A death certificate, dated 15 years earlier. I looked down at the name and immediately recognized it. Thomas Reed. My breath caught. I knew that name. Everyone in Charleston over 40 knew that name. Thomas Reed had once been my father's law partner. Then one day he died in a boating accident. At least that's what everyone believed. Sarah pointed at the report. Look closer. I scanned the document. Then my eyes landed on a handwritten note. One sentence. One sentence that changed everything. Cause of death disputed. I looked up. What? Sarah nodded. The official story never matched the evidence. My pulse accelerated. What are you saying? I'm saying someone reopened the investigation years ago. The room went silent. Who? Sarah swallowed. Thomas Reed's daughter. I stared at her. His daughter. What happened? She disappeared. The words hit me like a punch. What do you mean disappeared? No one knows. For several seconds I couldn't speak. Because suddenly the puzzle pieces started fitting together. A dead law partner. A hidden investigation. A missing daughter. 15 years of secret payments. And Gregory Sinclair somehow connected to all of it. But there was still one thing I didn't understand. Why now? Why force the marriage now? Then my phone buzzed. A text message. A known number. No greeting. No explanation. Just a photograph. I stared at the image. My blood turned cold. It was Emma, sitting in Gregory's private office, crying. The timestamp showed it had been taken minutes earlier. Beneath the photo was a single sentence. You have 7 days. 7 days for what? Before I could think, another message arrived. This one was worse. Much worse. Stop digging, or your sister pays the price. For several seconds I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Someone wasn't threatening me anymore. They were threatening Emma. And whoever sent the message had access to her. Close access, terrifyingly close. Sarah looked at my face. What happened? I handed her the phone. Her expression darkened instantly. Olivia. I know. We need to call the police. I laughed bitterly. The police. Half the police department attended my parents' charity events. The other half owed my father favors. No, this wasn't a police problem. This was a Carter family problem, And I was finally beginning to understand how dangerous my family truly was, because for years I'd believed my parents cared about reputation more than anything. I was wrong. They cared about survival. And desperate people do terrible things when they're cornered. What I didn't know yet was that my parents had already crossed a line they could never come back from, and within 48 hours, I would discover exactly what happened to Thomas Reed. The truth was worse than murder. And once I learned it, there would be no turning back. The truth found me before I found it. 2 nights after the threatening text, I arrived home just after midnight. A man was sitting in his car across the street, not hiding, waiting. The moment he saw me, he stepped out. He looked exhausted, early 60s, gray hair, nervous eyes. "I don't have much time," he said. My heart immediately started racing. "Who are you?" "My name is Daniel Reed." The world seemed to stop. Reed, Thomas Reed, the dead law partner. I stared at him. "You knew my father?" Daniel gave a bitter laugh. "Knew him." His eyes hardened. "I spent 15 years trying to expose him." My pulse quickened. "Get in." For the next 3 hours, Daniel told me everything. 15 years earlier, Thomas Reed had discovered massive fraud inside Carter Law Group. Not accounting errors, not minor corruption. Fraud. Millions of dollars stolen from client trust accounts, money meant for widows, retirees, accident victims, people who trusted the firm. Thomas wanted to go public. William Carter refused. The partners fought for months. Then Thomas suddenly died. Officially, a boating accident. Reality, his boat had been sabotaged. My stomach twisted. "You're saying my father murdered him?" Daniel looked away. "I can't prove that. But Thomas was alive when the boat exploded." I felt sick. Daniel slid a flash drive across the table. "What is this?" "The evidence Thomas collected." My hands shook. 15 years. 15 years hidden. 15 years buried. And now it was sitting in front of me. Then Daniel said something even worse. "Thomas had a daughter." "I know." Daniel nodded. "She didn't disappear." I froze. "What?" "They made her disappear." Every hair on my body stood up. "Who?" "William Carter." My heart pounded. Daniel's voice trembled. "She started investigating after her father's death." "What happened?" "Your father paid her." I blinked. "What?" "Millions." "That wasn't what I expected." Daniel nodded. "She accepted." I stared at him. "Why?" "Because she was 20 years old and terrified." Suddenly everything made sense. No murder cover -up, no kidnapping, no disappearance. A payoff. A giant payoff. Enough money to erase a life. Enough money to start over. Enough money to stay silent forever. And Gregory Sinclair funded it. The same Gregory now marrying Emma. The same Gregory who held my family's future in his hands. Everything connected. Every secret. Every lie. Every betrayal. Then Daniel dropped the final bomb. "The statute of limitations protects some of them." My stomach dropped. "Some of them. Not all." "What isn't protected?" Daniel looked directly into my eyes. "The ongoing fraud." The room went silent. Ongoing. Meaning it never stopped. Meaning they were still doing it. Meaning they could still be prosecuted. That was the leverage. That was the weapon. That was how I could save Emma and destroy them. So I started planning. Quietly, carefully, patiently. For the next month, I collected evidence, emails, bank records, wire transfers, hidden partnerships, shell companies, everything. Meanwhile, my parents believed they had won. Emma remained trapped. The wedding preparations accelerated. The invitations went out. The venue was booked. The guest list grew. 500 guests, judges, politicians, business leaders, media personalities, everyone who mattered in Charleston. My parents wanted the wedding to be unforgettable. They got their wish, just not the way they expected. Act 5. The public destruction. Wedding day arrived. The ceremony took place at one of the most expensive waterfront venues in South Carolina. Luxury cars lined the entrance. News cameras waited outside. Everyone important was there, including me.